Welcome to show number 2. We're talking Brewers here tonight. Thanks so much for joining us here on YouTube or on Facebook. If you want to go ahead and like the Facebook page, Hunter Baumgardt Sports on Facebook. You can also go to at Hunter B on air, just like all my other socials as well. So feel free to follow there for Brewers coverage and anything else that's going on. But again, at Hunter B on air for that YouTube channel and socials as well. And then on Facebook, Hunter Baumgart Sports Facebook page. Wanted to hop on here tonight and let's talk some Milwaukee Brewers, shall we? Spring training is officially underway. First full squad workout is coming up tomorrow. All the players were in today. Christian Yelich spoke today. Many players have spoken to reporters in the last few days or so. A lot of guys a little earlier than usual. I mean, a lot of guys get down there early, but this year it seems even a little more than usual just because of the World Baseball Classic. Guys like Joey Ortiz, Bryce Terang going to be in the World Baseball Classic. They want to get a little more time in. So I would assume that is why they are there a little earlier. But here's what we're going to kind of go over tonight. There's a few different things. We are going to introduce a couple new Brewers that is now, both are now official. Gary Sanchez, catcher, coming back to Milwaukee. He was with the Brewers in 2024. Luis Rengifo. The Brewers have their third baseman. I'll tell you why coming up. He signed with the Brewers officially today. And so we'll get into that, why this works for the Brewers, why they went with Rengifo over maybe some other options, and why this could be pretty good fit over there at third base, at least for the time being, which I think is all that is going to be. And then later in the show, we are going to get into a couple of changes that Major League Baseball is making that I want to make you aware of if you haven't seen them yet, and kind of describe why they're making these changes and what it can do. You as a fan is watching Major League Baseball, watching Brewers games starting on March 26th. What is this going to do for this season, and how can kind of you prepare for just a couple of changes? Obviously, one of the big ones being ABS and the challenge system with strike ball. We knew that was coming. There's a little more nuance when it comes to viewing games on the TV when it comes to the ABS system that I want to get into as well. So all of that coming up. But let's start with the news of the week for the Milwaukee Brewers. And that starts with Mr. Luis Rengifo, who is officially signing a one-year deal with a mutual option for 2027. By the way, taking your comments all night long as well. So feel free to give us a comment. I'll answer as many questions as possible and take your comments. Always love the interaction on here. So Luis Rengifo, he is the one that is the chosen one, so to speak, for the Milwaukee Brewers third base position. And he signs the deal. It was according to Mark Feinsand first. And then, of course, the Brewers actually made it official this afternoon about 2, 3 o'clock. And so it's, again, a one-year deal with a mutual option for 2027. He spent 2019 through 2025 with the Angels. He made his debut with the Angels back in 2019. He'll turn 29 in about 10 days. February 26th, we're going to be seeing that tweet come out from the Milwaukee Brewers saying, "Happy birthday, Luis Rengifo." But again, 29 coming up, so he's still in his prime. Got that mutual option for next year. This is the type of player to me that is kind of that stopgap option, right? That veteran player who's been there, done that, who can come in and be a third baseman for a little while or wherever they want him to play. Obviously, they came into spring being open when it comes to their infield. We'll get into more of specifically how he fits in a moment. But let's look at a couple of stats just to introduce you to Rengifo a little bit. And you start in 2024, right? 78 games, not a lot. And that was because of a wrist injury that he suffered in July. Then he played only 9 games after that. Then he had season-ending wrist surgery in August of 2024. That is why he only played 78 games in 2024. But that year, he was hitting 300. That is pretty significant. You think about 78 games, right? That's about half a season. And that would make sense because he got hurt in July. All-Star breaks about July. It's the quote-unquote midway, halfway, Obviously, the halfway through the season is a little earlier than that usually, but he hit 300, 6 home runs, 30 RBI. Now, you look at 2025, okay? You look at 2025, 147 games. this is the last season he was a stalwart for the Angels. He was there almost every game, only 15 games where he did not play. 238 batting average, 9 home runs, and 43 RBI. So the power numbers weren't at a clip, the same clip, obviously. You look at 78 games. He played almost double the amount of games in 2025 compared to 2024. He only had 3 more home runs, 13 RBI. And obviously, that average is way down. Obviously, double the amount of games or so that is going to have a significant impact on that average. However, it is significant to look at how he has played offensively since that wrist injury. I mean, he was tearing it up for 78 games in 2024, right? He was absolutely tearing it up. It was a situation where in 2024, he was had the 300 batting average. Then you get a wrist injury, then you get surgery in August. And his offensive numbers just weren't as good in 2025. So and his offensive numbers overall were better 2022, 2023 than they were in 2025. I think one of the big questions, especially offensively for Luis Rengifo as he signs with the Brewers, is where is that? How healthy is that wrist? And I wonder if we're going to get that, asked of him here soon. Maybe Matt Arnold will do an interview and talk about it. I don't because it's so far away, I'm not saying it's an issue. It could not have been, and it could just be a down year for him, right? It's hey, ups and downs happen in baseball. So I'm not saying that it's causing anything to happen or had a huge effect on 2025. I do not know, but it's something to look at because he hasn't been the same since that wrist injury in July of 2024. So something to keep in mind. Something also to keep in mind is his fielding. So this is an interesting one because you look at his career starts at different uh, spots on the infield, right? He has by far his most career starts at second base. Now, do I think Bryce Terang is going to move out of second base because Luis Rengifo was signed? No, I would think that Terang likely will stay there at second base. However, that's a significant amount of starts at second base, 341, and then you have third base, 156 starts, just 76 at shortstop, and then 29 in the outfield. Now, the fielding percentage is where it gets very interesting because he's good at second base, but then below average at other positions. Now, you also have to, remember you sometimes take this with a grain of salt, right? There's different things that go into it. There's obviously more to a player than their fielding percentage when it comes to defense. And last year, he was a Gold Glove finalist at second base. So you have to remember that as well, and that's why that 980 fielding percentage makes sense. 980 above is very good, very, very good for a fielder. Below that, that 948, at third base and shortstop, not that's a little bit below average. So I think you look at that and you say he's clearly best at second base. Well, why is that? Well, a couple things with his arm isn't crazy strong and it isn't crazy accurate. So when you look at that specifically, you say, okay, that's why second base, right? Because you may be a good fielder with the glove a little bit, and I don't. His range isn't amazing, but he's got some. So I think you look at second base and you say that's probably his best fit. Now there's another world where, and I don't know if it's this one, but maybe it's another world where Bryce Terang plays short and Joey Ortiz plays third and Rengifo plays second. I don't think it's a world that happens in 2026. Maybe on occasion, maybe at times, maybe there's a late game situation where that happens. I from Pat Murphy's comments, on the first day of meeting with the media last week and saying that I would expect Joey to be our shortstop and Bryce trying to be our second baseman. If that's the case, I don't necessarily see them changing their mind on that. However, they did flip flop on who's going to be their shortstop last year. Remember, so I think things can change, and obviously, spring training performance is going to have an impact on that. But I also have to think that most likely it's going to be shortstop for Joey and Bryce Terang at second base, and then Rengifo is going to be your third baseman. So here's the thing. I want to do this because I put together this earlier, and I just think it's interesting to look at the 2025 between Caleb Durbin and Luis Rengifo. look at okay, so 147 games, 136 games, about the same amount of games, right? Caleb Durbin, better in all those hitting statistics, right? Obviously, batting average is 256 to 238. He had a couple more home runs than Rengifo did last year. He had 10 more RBI than he did last year, and 8 more stolen bases than Rengifo did last year. Am I cherry picking a season from a veteran? Yes. Is it the only season we have to go off of Caleb Durbin? Yes. So you have to take that into account. But I just it's Caleb Durbin, and there's this, you know, a fair amount of people here that are very much quick to say, "Oh, it's this could be a really good trade." It could be. It could be a really good trade. Caleb Durbin might not have those. Here you go. Those types of numbers again. That could be his career best year. But it was also his rookie year where, yes, maybe the league didn't adjust to him, right? Hear that with quarterbacks all the time, right? Now the league has an offseason to adjust and game plan for a guy like Jordan Love or whoever it happens to be, right after their first year. And yes, pitchers are going to have probably a different way to attack Caleb Durbin in his second year, and the game kind of catches up to him a little bit. But that's a really strong rookie showing. And I just wonder how we're going to look at this trade. And I'm not saying 2026 is the end all be all because clearly this team is built for the future. The pitching is built for the future. And I think for good reason. And especially with a possible lockout coming up next year, who knows who's going to be in the best position, right? Because you're most likely in the best position if what? If you're really set up for even 28 and 29. Because what if they institute a salary cap? Now, I'm not saying they're going to like after 27 and then all of a sudden in 2028, everybody has to, and Shohei Ohtani has to be cut because of how much money he owes. No, there's going to be a grandfather in system. It's not all going to be fixed right away. Like there's just no way. But I do think it's interesting how the Brewers have always thought about the future. The Brewers have always been really smart about their moves when it comes to their future. This is a very future move, and I get and it's not in the normal way when you trade away Caleb Durbin and he has 6 years of control and you say, "How is this a future move when he has 6 years of control?" It's a future move because Caleb Durbin is probably to me and there are probably other statistics and there are I mean you could spin anything, but there are most likely and they have more numbers inside that Brewers organization than I do obviously, and I'm eager to hear and see what they say throughout the season, and maybe we get a little deeper into that trade as time goes on. And obviously, we'll see how Caleb Durbin does in Boston this year. But on the surface, Caleb Durbin is a better player after 2025 than Luis Rengifo. But does that mean Caleb Durbin is going to have as good of a 2026 as 2025? No. As Rengifo, could he be a lot better in 2025 or in 2026 than 2025? Absolutely. I just think right now does it they took a step back at third base. Now, what does Kyle Harrison do? What does Shane Drowan do? What does even David Hamilton do in his utility role? And that's what I like about signing, Rengifo here is because you were able to put David Hamilton in that more utility role where I think he is best suited. I think you're in a good spot if David Hamilton is your Andre Monasterio. I said that last week. I'll say it again because I just think that is going to be where he is best suited. So he's probably your second, third baseman, and that kind of drops Jet Williams off. Maybe he starts the year at AAA, get him a little more experience. Because you got to remember again, all these guys who you talk about Jet Williams and you talk about, I mean, Jet Williams played 34 games in AAA last year. Otherwise, Pratt, Wilkin, Madej, Pena, Fisher, all five of those guys have not played a pitch of AAA baseball yet. So that's why I was puzzled when they traded Caleb Durbin. That's why the Rengifo signing makes sense in the fact that after you traded Caleb Durbin, you had to get a guy. You couldn't rely on Pratt making a jump from double A to opening day roster or Wilkin. or any of the obviously Pena, Madej, and Fisher are coming eventually. But obviously they are not going to make the opening day roster. I'm very pretty sure in saying that. So you had to have someone, and this makes sense that the Brewers went and signed Rengifo. Now they were also I should say, Luis Urias's brother, Ramon Urias. It sounds like, according to Ken Rosenthal, the Athletic, that the Brewers were in between the two. So it's interesting because Urias is the better defender of the two. However, you look at Rengifo and he's got the higher ceiling. So offensively. So I think the Brewers were going for, clearly, because of this signing, if they were in on Urias as well, then you look at it and say, okay, I think the Brewers were going for a little more offense here. And maybe even betting on that they wanted more offense than what Caleb Durbin gave you last year, right? Look at this. Caleb Durbin, 11 homers, 53 RBIs, 18 stolen bases. I mean, there have been years when Hifo's been in the 16, 17 home run range, which is obviously almost double what he did in 2025. But that's a significant possibility as well, that you go, okay, Rengifo has a higher ceiling. Then look at those numbers on the left side. And maybe with some adjustments is the key here, because the Brewers, what they did with Andrew Vaughn is they were able to make some tweaks to the swing, make some tweaks to, obviously, Andrew Vaughn's swing decisions. We remember Pat Murphy's quote, like, swing at strikes, basically, to Andrew Vaughn, and how much that helped him in 2025, and how much he burst onto the scene for the Brewers and was a key player down the stretch into the postseason for the Milwaukee Brewers. If the Brewers can do the same type of thing with Rengifo, because his swing decisions need to be better. So if they can do that, that's going to be that could be an Andrew Vaughn type signing over there at third base. So the jury is way still out on this trade. We're like 1 week out from this trade happening. You look at the numbers from 2025 and you say Caleb Durbin is probably, and that being just his rookie season, you think of, okay, where could this guy go from here with learning the game a little more? Now he's got a full year under his belt. Preparation gets better after that, right? You learn a full major league season. I'm excited to see what Caleb Durbin can do in the future. Unfortunately, it's going to be for the Boston Red Sox. But I'm also excited to see what Rengifo can do in the short term, because after Rengifo, it's going to be a lot of really good talent in that Brewers minor league system. So a couple things to know about Rengifo quickly. Switch hitter, so that's always fun. Can hit from both sides of the plate. Again, good option at third base. I think comparatively to the other guys that are on the roster, right? David Hamilton, I think Rengifo's a better option at third base, and Jet Williams, give him a little more time at AAA if you need to, just fine. And then maybe he bursts onto the scene kind of like Caleb Durbin did last year. I don't know. The Brewers started with Vinny Capra and Oliver Dunn as their platoon at third base last year. I don't foresee, and by April 18th, Caleb Durbin was called up, and then he played 136 out of 162, and he missed the first whatever it was, 15 games of the season because he was in AAA. So since that was the case, he obviously had an opportunity, and they had gotten him in the Devin Williams deal, and they obviously wanted to give him a shot and see what they had in him. I don't necessarily see that happening with Luis Rengifo this year. Being paid $3.5 million, has some incentives that could even boost that up a little more. I think this is more of a situation of Rengifo's your third baseman, and he would have to play very poorly for someone else to take that over. Now, I'm not saying that he won't get off days, or they'll maybe throw in a guy here and a guy there, and a David Hamilton start here and a David Hamilton start there. I'm not saying that won't happen, but at least for the first significant part of the season, I mean, maybe even the whole year, I think Luis Rengifo is going to get a lot of playing time at third base. So if you think this is a month type of deal, I just don't think it is. I think it's longer than a month. I think it's a significant amount of time unless he's doing very, very poorly. Um, and I think this just literally does give everybody else a little breather. Start the year in AAA, then maybe come mid-season, you have a chance to get back on the roster. Injuries also can have an effect on this. Maybe Jet Williams is up earlier. You know, say if David Hamilton's struggling off the bench, maybe Jet Williams becomes that guy. So a lot of different options here, but I think Luis Rengifo is going to be given a longer leash than a Capra Dunn, you know, a Capra Dunn platoon, if you will. Let's get to a couple of comments here. Let's see here. Armin. Armin, we're going to be on the air at bright and early 5 a.m. I'm filling in on the huddle on Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin this week. So definitely tune in there. You lay this out very well. Good points. Maybe they even upgrade while getting the trade compensation. It's possible. Yeah, it's possible that Luis Rengifo has a better 2026 than Caleb Durbin. Very possible. We could see a regression in year 2 from Caleb Durbin. Like I said, the pitchers catch up to you. You just have a rough year. Like, that happens in baseball too. Christian Yelich was at his locker today. He says it time and time and time and time again, you're gonna have ups and downs. So they might bet right. And again, Brewers might have some numbers that say, yeah, Caleb Durbin is maybe just a one-year wonder on that front. I'll have to see it to believe it, but maybe that's possible. Let's see here. Could Vaughn play third? I don't think so. I I it's I'd like it because the lineup would look great because you get Bowers in there a little bit. I especially now, obviously, with Rengifo signed, I think he's your guy at third, but I don't think that is going to happen for Andrew Vaughn. Let's see. Greg says, "Do you think it helps the new guys to have a guy like Andrew Vaughn in the clubhouse?" Yeah, I think it helps Greg to have not just Vaughn in there, but you think about all the guys that have come in there and been successful. I mean, Isaac Collins is a good example of it. Unfortunately, now he's gone. But there have been, I mean, Trevor McGill is a good example who came to Milwaukee and has excelled. And you know, he's on the pitching side, but even a Jake Bowers who has found his spot in Milwaukee. I mean, there are definitely guys. I mean, Greg Jones is an interesting one who comes in as a former first round pick and kind of has been up and down and very up and down shaky in his career, but maybe he's able to resurrect something. Like, the Brewers take chances on these guys, and they took a chance on Andrew Vaughn. Knew they had to get rid of Savale. We all know what happened last year with Savale, and then obviously with Vaughn. I think it gives confidence that, hey, if I sign with the Brewers, I might be better than I was. And they have a very good coaching staff to do that. Now, obviously, the hitting coaches are a little bit different this year. Daniel Vogelbach being in there, so we'll see what he's able to do. But so I just think it's an interesting. I think it's a good point, Greg, and I think not only Vaughn, but how many. And we talk about this with pitching with the Brewers all the time, but it's position players too. How many times have we said that a player goes into Milwaukee and plays the best out of their career and has a career year? It's not just pitchers. There is a you know, there's again, Isaac Collins is a great example of it. So, I'm excited to see what they can do with Rengifo, and Rengifo is a guy who's been there, done that, and made his debut back in 2019, so he knows his way around. It's a little maybe better in leadership as well in that clubhouse, so I'm excited to see what they can do. Let me see here. Let's go back to James 172. It just would be nice to have Bowers and Vaughn in the lineup at the same time. I agree. I definitely agree. I think it's going to be very much a Vaughn Bowers platoon over there. You know, Vaughn against lefties, Bowers against righties. Um, but it would be nice. Maybe you see it Bowers DH if the Yelly's in the field, or maybe it's a game where Yelich is off and you see kind of both of them in the lineup. I like the pop of both of them, and yeah, I would think that's where you're going with that too. I really do. I like that, and so, but unfortunately, I don't think Vaughn is cut out for third base. I'm sure he'd be, open to trying it. I mean, he's down to do whatever it takes. Eddie, Hunter, you were the I appreciate the kind words, Eddie. All right. Appreciate it, Eddie. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Definitely comment. I'll spin through these as we go. Let's get into Gary Sanchez here a little bit, okay? Gary's back. Gary Sanchez back. Spent 2024 with the Brewers. You remember him? He was the backup in 2024. Had a big home run against the Cubs, if you remember that. It's a one-year deal, mutual option for 2027. So Gary Sanchez, he's sensing a theme here. Rengifo, mutual option for 2027. Gary Sanchez, a mutual option for 2027. Usually those are just throw-ins. I would expect that most likely um, they are not going to be with the team next year, but it's all about 2026 right now, right? So Gary Sanchez, he's back. Let's dig into Gary Sanchez a little bit because this is interesting. So 2024 with the Brewers, 220 average. So obviously not great average. Hit 11 homers. That's fine for 89 games, right? 37 RBI in 89 games for the Brewers. He was a serviceable backup catcher. I mean, that's really the way to put it, right? Last year, he had a really injury-riddled season. Unfortunately, he ended up just playing 29 games with the Orioles. So hopefully he's coming in healthier. Hopefully he's coming in with a clean bill of health to play this season. And then in his career, he's now bounced around to a few different teams. Obviously, Yankees started there. He's played most of his career in New York with the Yankees. He was also with the Twins and Mets, Padres, of course, like I said, Brewers in 2024, Baltimore last year. He is a two-time All-Star earlier in his career. So that's the Gary Sanchez kind of report. If you forgot kind of who he was and what he did with the Brewers, again, 2024 was the year he was with Milwaukee. To me, this signing says, okay, Jefferson Caro needs a little more time in AAA because at some point we need to see Jefferson Caro in the big leagues. And unfortunately, injuries have held him back. I think we would have seen him at the big league level at some point. But with William Contreras after this year having just one more year of control, and you wonder if a trade of William Contreras could be in the not too distant future, maybe next offseason, because that's what the Brewers do, right? When a guy's going to get paid, depending on how the 2026 season goes for William Contreras. But when the Brewers, as well as I do, that when a guy is going to get paid and there's a year left on his deal, they try to get something for him, right? So if they're not going to sign him, they got to see what Jefferson Caro has. And does that arm hold up after the injuries? And is that arm any better than it was last year? And is that, can it bounce back even more than it had? And it hadn't bounced fully back. And will it bounce fully back to what it was pre-injury? I don't know. But maybe you want to give him some time in AAA to see if he can kind of regain that or get close to it before you call him up to the majors. But this lets him get his legs under him. I think Gary's probably the backup catcher. McGuire is in play too. Remember they signed Reese McGuire as well. He kind of seems like the Jorge Alfaro deal. Remember Alfaro from last year? He played in AAA. I don't think he ever played with the major league club, if memory serves. I don't think he was called up. Yeah, I don't think he was, but that's just off the top of my head. But that's what I see with Reese McGuire. Like he's back of the depth chart, right? If you're in a pinch, hopefully Gary stays healthy. But if Gary gets hurt early in the year, maybe you need Reese before Caro can get here. But I do think that Gary Sanchez is your backup catcher to start. Contreras and Sanchez already have rapport. I saw a video today of Sanchez working with Mizorowski and having his first time catching him in a bullpen session, kind of learning the arsenal of Jacob Mizorowski as one does if you're coming in and going to catch the guy. So excited to see Gary back. But I also do think that I think he's your backup catcher this year. And how much does William Contreras play? Does he continue to catch as much as he can? I am really excited about William Contreras and what he can do this year, mainly because William Contreras is not injured and his finger is back to normal. All reports are that he had successful surgery over the offseason. Remember, he was battling that all year. There was debate whether he should just have surgery and be out for the season and blah, blah, blah. He made it to the end of the year. He was, had big moments in the postseason, all with that finger looking sideways at times, and just some ugly, ugly sights with that finger. So he gets that all repaired, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in 2026. Let's look at a couple more comments here. Let's go to okay. So, and we're gonna eventually here. We're gonna get to my 3 things to watch in spring training since it officially starts tomorrow. So we're gonna get that in a little while. And Philip has a question about Garrett Mitchell. So that's when we'll get to. We'll get to Garrett Mitchell, because he just a tease here in just a couple of minutes. Garrett Mitchell is one of my things to watch in spring training. Let's see here. This is from DMH 1027. Do you see there being a possibility of Bauers taking a step forward this year or having about the same production as previous years? I think he could take a step forward. I mean, he committed to Milwaukee early on in the offseason. I think he was maybe the first signing of the offseason for the Brewers and getting him back. And Bauers said that, the decision was pretty easy for him. He has loved his time in Milwaukee, obviously at the big postseason moment. I absolutely could see Jake Bauers taking a step here. And you kind of wonder what's going to happen with that first base position. How much playing time is he going to get? I think Vaughn's going to be the guy, but I think Bauers is very much going to be in it over there at first too. I also just love Jake Bauers coming off the bench. He is a very good pinch hitter. Any situation, I trust the guy. So I'm excited to see what Bauers can do in 2026. That's a kind of an under the radar watch. And if the Brewers are going to do what they want to do this year, I think he's going to be key to it, because I think he's going to get a fair amount of playing time. As I mentioned, I think Vaughn's your number 1 starter technically if you had to list a depth chart. But I also think Bauers is going to have some key moments and play a fair amount against right-handed pitching as well. Roger would love to see Yelich work some at first. We keep our solid outfield out there every day. That's an interesting one. This is kind of the Braun at first, right? It's the play Ryan Braun at first base. That would be interesting. If the Brewers didn't have a first baseman, like if they were struggling for a first baseman, I would agree. I think Yelich is your DH most of the time, and that keeps your outfield where you want it to be. Remember, Bauers can also play outfield, so that's something else. Maybe he gets some starts in the outfield as well. Obviously, his natural position is first base, but you also consider that as well. But I do think that Christian Yelich is going to DH probably more often than not. He'll play some field, but as we'll get to in a moment with Garrett Mitchell coming back, you have Blake Perkins, obviously, and it sounds like he's healthy again after kind of battling, obviously, the fracture last year around this time, and then he really never found his footing last year. So it's obviously Sale out there. I don't think we see Sale at third base, especially after the Rengifo signing. Before the Rengifo signing, I was kind of like, maybe experiment. I think you keep Sale in right. Then you have Churio in left, and then center field could be Perkins or Mitchell, and that leads into Philip here. What happened to that guy? Garrett Mitchell obviously got hurt diving back into a base last year on a rehab assignment. I mean, I just feel for that guy. He's just a fantastic guy, and a lot of these guys are, but I just have always enjoyed my conversations with Mitchell, and I've just kind of been rooting for him. And unfortunately, it's been early season injuries that have just hampered him. And he's just hasn't been able to contribute as much as he's wanted to. Obviously, he had the big moment in the wild card series against the Mets a couple of years ago in 2024. So that was great. But I've said this on every show, I think, and I'll say it probably on every show till the season and maybe into the season. I think Garrett Mitchell has so much potential, and I want to see him get chances every day. I would love to see a Churio Mitchell Free Lake outfield. I think Perkins is a fantastic defender as well, and if he can hit well, great. You can do a little platoon out there as well. But boy, I know Murph loves Perkins. I think the whole organization does, but I really want to see what Garrett Mitchell can do, and we finally can kind of see that Frelick Mitchell outfield that we have been wanting for a more consistent time. We've seen it, but really more consistent. So I think that you'll see Garrett Mitchell in center more often than Blake Perkins right now. But this organization loves Blake Perkins, and not for for good reason. I mean, Blake Perkins is a really good center fielder, but can he do it at the plate as well? And if he can, then obviously that's big. So we'll see what and obviously how spring goes for Garrett Mitchell too. I'm interested to see how he's able to kind of bounce back, how he looks in spring. It's one of my things to watch. We'll get to in a moment. I'm fascinated with Garrett Mitchell. Let's see here. Christopher, haven't heard much about Blake Burke when prospects are mentioned. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, he is in there. I think sometimes at points there are, the flashy prospects are in there, right? Your top prospects, so to speak, when you look at all of them, right? He's not listed in your top 5 right now, but I think he's definitely got a legit. I think all these guys, again, we're going to hear more. This trade of Caleb Durbin kind of jumped us into prospect talk earlier than I would have thought. Like coming out of 2025 when the team won 97 games, like I thought, okay, this team's pretty set. And then come 27, 28, 29 is when you'll see some of those other guys. But I think it accelerated it for everybody. If it accelerates the guys closest to the big leagues, it accelerates everybody below that too, like a Blake Burke. Let's see, Roger, this has to be the last chance for Mitchell to stay healthy or he must move on from him. Yeah, I have always kind of been scared every time I look at my phone when there's a Brewers trade to see if Mitchell is in it, because I wouldn't have been surprised if they try to kind of, just say, okay, I don't know if it's going to work here. And then another team wants to take a flyer on him with so much potential, but I'm very glad he's a Brewer right now. And yeah, if he doesn't obviously stay healthy, I think, there's going to have to be conversations. And then, but I also think at that point, if he doesn't stay healthy again, yes, you want to move on, but why? I mean, you still got a bunch of years of control left. Like it's sure you could maybe be at that time of throwing in the deal, but again, that's conjecture about him being injured, and we don't need to do that. Yes, he does need to stay healthy. That is definitely documented and should be noted. But I hope he does, because again, I'd be very eager to see a lot of Garrett Mitchell during the season and what he can do alongside Sale in that outfield. I mean, you have good defense. He's incredibly fast. I think we forget how fast Garrett Mitchell is too. So that's, something significant. So that gets me to the 3 things to watch, as I got to take out Roger's comment there. 3 things to watch in spring training in 2026, as the spring training official workouts will begin tomorrow. I know all the guys are there. They're playing catch and getting BP in today and everything like that. My number one thing is the infield, right? How is it going to shape out? I think the signing of Rengifo really, it looks like, is going to put him at third base. Then you're going to have Joey at short. Then you're going to have Terang at second, and then Vaughn and Bowers at first. However, Ortiz and Terang will leave in about 10 days or so, right around Rengifo's birthday, which again, Rengifo turns 29 in 10 days. But I have a feeling, and it might not. I mean, I don't know exactly when they're leaving, but I would think right around the 26th, late February, for the World Baseball Classic, Ortiz and Terang. So you're going to see different variations of that infield. You're going to see Jet Williams. You're going to see Cooper Pratt. You're going to see Brott Wilkin, right? You're going to see these guys in a lot of games because they're going to have opportunity. David Hamilton, and obviously Luis Rengifo as well. You're going to see these guys, and I'm very interested to see how they line them up. And do you see some shuffling around? Where does Jet Williams play the most? If they were like, yeah, we're ready to have Jet Williams be our opening day third baseman, I don't think they would have signed Luis Rengifo. So I have a feeling that, yes, he can play different parts of the infield, and maybe he ends up being the third baseman at some point because you want to fit everybody in. But I do think Jet Williams probably starts the year at AAA or he's kind of your backup. But I think you want him to get more consistent at bats. So I would think he's at AAA to start the season. But that infield is my number one thing to watch in spring training. Number two, Garrett Mitchell. I just want to see, stay healthy, have some production, some good at bats, just look good, show off that speed a little bit. I'm excited. I think one of my because I'm excited to see him back in a Brewers uniform. And it could be a significant addition. I mean, you think about it, you take away Caleb Durbin and maybe you get kind of that offense back from Garrett Mitchell, right? Where is it going to come from this year than it didn't last year? Because not everybody who had a great year last year is going to have a great year this year. And some years, some guys who didn't have a great year last year might have a great year this year. Joey Ortiz could have a jump up this year. Who knows? I kind of think he might. But he came into camp with a beard, so maybe the beard is going to be maybe that's going to be the ticket for Joey Ortiz. And then finally, my last thing is the Pat Murphy extension. He's going into his last year of his deal. We all obviously know Craig Counsell went into his last year of his deal, and then we all know what happened there. I don't foresee Pat Murphy being on a 1-year deal, going into opening day. I think in the next month and 10 days before opening day, March 26th, against the White Sox, 110 at American Family Field. Can't wait. I think Pat Murphy gets an extension before then. In fact, I'll just say I would be surprised if they go into the season without an extension done. He's told him he wants to stay. The guy's the 2-time NL Manager of the Year. I would be very surprised if he is not locked up by the beginning of the season. I'm surprised, to be honest, I'm surprised right now that he's not locked up beyond this year, especially with Ricky Weeks moving to the front office and kind of that upstairs role, so to speak, the ivory tower, as Pat Murphy calls it. And there's a significant amount of shakeup on that roster of that coaching staff, I should say, as well. But I think Pat Murphy does indeed get an extension by opening day. So if we're sitting here on opening day and he doesn't, I'll be surprised. But who knows? Maybe there's a hang up in there somewhere that we're not aware of. Not sure. But those are my 3 things to watch when it comes to Brewers spring training. Okay. Before we go, any last comments? Feel free to comment here. Going to wrap up here pretty soon. But a couple of other baseball notes and a couple of things I wanted to get to here that you may not have seen. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But Major League Baseball is so, of course, they're going to the ABS challenge system, right? Strike ball challenge system. Pitchers, batters can challenge, which I think is good because there are just some ball strike calls that determine games that shouldn't be egregious, right? It's the egregious ones, just like, and everything's gotten so technical with, did his toe hit the ground in football, or did this guy's fingertip touch the basketball before it went out of bounds? And I get it. It's going to get technical, but I think they've done a really good job. I was at spring training last year when they had the ABS system, and it was really quick and really efficient, and it's not going to hold up the game. And I think it's going to help the game. So honestly, like the pitch clock, I think it's going to be a resounding yes from a lot of fans. However, when you watch the game, you know how they have the little box when you watch a game? So they have the little box right in front of the catcher, right? The strike zone, so to speak. And they're not necessarily fully accurate, but here, I'll show you here. So of course, you right in the middle, right where the catcher is you have a square box. Well, I didn't realize this, and maybe this is maybe I need to pay more attention. Apparently, so see the circle there? The circle is if it's a ball or a strike. So if it's filled in, I believe it's a strike. And if it's a circle, an empty circle, right above where it says 96, it's considered a ball. If it's an empty circle, it's a ball. And so what they're going to do this time is starting this year, so then people can't be watching and they're going to take that away. So you're going to still have the box, but you're not going to have whether the ball is a strike or a ball. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot because I didn't even notice anyway. So this, the courtesy of FanDuel Sports and Major League Baseball. But I So you look at, again, you look where that circle is, um, and it's a ball because it's just below the zone. And so you're like, well, Hunter, why are they taking it away? They're taking it away because they don't want somebody this is all stemming from probably like the Astros scandal, right? Where you have someone in the dugout and someone watching the TV and, oh, that one got filled in. It should be a strike challenge or whatever, right? So that's why they're taking it away. So then teams cannot quickly look at the game feed and quickly tell players to challenge. Although it's such a quick thing, like you immediately have to challenge. Like there's not like there's not going to be a lot of or any, from what I understand, of the Murph on the phone. All right, hold it, everybody, hold it, and then okay, keep playing. That's not going to be it. This is going to be immediate. This is going to be, you either challenge or you don't, or you move on. Now, I don't know that I should dig into the technicalities as far as how many seconds they have or whatnot, but it's going to be a short time. That's one change. The second change is, going along with that quickly, Major League Baseball is taking the strike zone off of all in-stadium feeds, meaning if there are any boxes, like I believe, and I think, if memory serves, there was a box in the upper right scoreboard at American Family Field. Well, maybe there wasn't. Was there? Here I am. I cover the majority of the home games, and I basically in stadium feeds, there are not going to be boxes anymore. Like you can't put a strike zone in an in-stadium feed. So anywhere in the stadium. So in little TVs, little jumbotrons, big scoreboards, there cannot be a strike zone there anymore. There can't be a box to show if it's a strike or not. Basically, you don't want to give a hint to the pitcher or the hitter, and to keep this all, status quo, and to keep, well, not status quo, but keep it all in good standing, if you will. They're not going to have boxes on any in-stadium feed. So just something to keep in mind as well. All right. And then the one more other change that the Major League Baseball is making for 2026 is the coaching boxes. Now, this is courtesy of Major League Baseball. I thought this was a fascinating graphic when I came across it. So what Major League Baseball is doing is they are going to make sure coaches stay in their coach's box till the pitch is thrown. So as you can see on the first and third base side, you can see the red lines. That's where the coaches' boxes are. And you obviously see it when you go to a game or even on TV where those coaches' boxes are. But you also realize that, like when Jason Lane was coaching third, now obviously it'll be Matt Erickson, Lane is like halfway down the third base line sometimes. That can happen, but Lane has to be in the box until the pitch is thrown, and then he could scurry down there. So they're not going to get nearly as far, because you look at where those green dots were, average base coach positioning by club, right? So you have like when their bases are empty, they're way out, probably even talking to the umpire. The blue, right? See where the blue is? That's where bases are empty. It's probably talking to the umpire. Then the black is runners on first base or third base, which makes sense, right? You're going to be close to the base because you want to be close to your player and telling him what's going on. When Jason Lane at third base was getting way down the line was when there's a runner at second base, which makes so much sense because look at where all those positions are at when the runner is at second base, the green. That's all going to have to be put in the first into the boxes. And then look at first base. First base, everybody is so many people are outside the box. So I think that's fascinating because they're going to have to be inside, and that's an adjustment for coaches because they're kind of used to wandering the lines, but that's not necessarily going to happen. In fact, it's not. And so they're going to enforce that. Now, again, it's not a new rule. Like this has been a rule. This has been a significant rule. Well, not a significant rule because they haven't enforced it, but this has been a rule for a little while, a long time, right? It's supposed to stay in your box. They're just going to enforce it now. Basically, that's what's going to happen. So they're going to enforce it. So a couple of different things. Again, that's, and you say, why, Hunter, are they doing that? To cut down on pitch tipping. So they don't want, signs being relayed. Again, they're really trying to keep, and I commend baseball for doing this, keeping the integrity in the sport. Because I think obviously with the Emmanuel Clase stuff over the offseason and the pitches and stuff like that, and the tipping and the Astros scandal, and there's been scandals in baseball that have taken that integrity, that have tried to. I don't see baseball as a game without integrity, but I just think that have attempted, or even not necessarily attempted, to take integrity out of baseball, but just by the actions and by the scandals have lessened the credibility sometimes of baseball. And they're really trying to make sure that that's not the case and that it's a game of integrity. So I really commend Rob Manfred in baseball for doing that, for sure, because that's what we want. We want that in all sports. It's not just baseball. Let me see here. Last one here from DMH 1027. Speaking of extensions, do you see any players getting one anytime soon? If so, who do you think is most likely, Turang, Frelick, or Contreras? Oh my. They should. They absolutely should. It's hard for me to say they're going to extend anybody right now, just because of how much kind of they're pinching pennies right now. But if you sign, I think Turang would, if I were to pick of those top three, who is most likely to get an extension, I would pick Turang, because he's shown the most. And he's shown that pop at the end of the year last year with the homers showed me something, especially if he can continue to do that this year. You have a platinum glove second baseman who can do that and steal bases. I mean, yeah, lock him up yesterday. And I still think, even if they should lock him up yesterday, period. And I'd love to see Frelick here long term. The Contreras thing, I kind of think, and maybe he's a catcher who is one of the rare ones that has a really long career of really good productivity. But it's hard to sign a catcher to a significant contract, especially in Milwaukee. Now. What happens next year with the CBA negotiations? Like, does a salary cap come into it? Because if so, then yes. Salary floor, we can get into this, and we can get into this during the season and stuff. Like, if you talk about a salary floor, and I heard some people and saw some things, and could a salary floor be like $150 million? That's like $30 more million for the Brewers to spend, like 20 to 30 million more if you put a floor in, because I think a cap doesn't go in without a floor. So if you have a floor, then you have more money to spend. Like, you have to spend it. So I think that's just as fascinating as a cap, as if you do the floor. And at that point, if that's the case, and if you're anticipating that, or if you see that happen, lock them up. And again, Contreras has to be in on it as well. But I think the most likely of those three would be Turang. That's who I would also I would extend right now. I wouldn't be shocked with them signing Frelick either, because I think he's going to be more of a bargain, and that's the type of player that the Brewers would keep around and would extend. So I don't know if they're going to do it anytime soon. I kind of think they're going to play the waiting game with the CBA negotiations and see where that goes. I mean, there is going to be a time when we have not heard much about the possible lockout next year affecting this offseason, this 2026 offseason, into the 2026 season. But I got to think it's in the back of minds of executives. I just have to. And I would think that maybe someday, maybe next year, when we're trying to come up with content because baseball is not happening because there's a lockout, that maybe, we interview some people and they say, yeah, it was kind of in the back of our minds. Maybe not next year. Maybe it's down the road. Maybe someone writes a book, whatever it happens to be. But I just got to think that it's at least, and I don't know what exactly impact it's having, but I got to think there's at least something to that. Thanks everyone for chiming in tonight. Really, I enjoy doing this. I'm going to make this a regular thing on Monday nights, I think. So stay tuned on the Facebook page, Hunter Baumgardt Sports, and then on all socials. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and so you never miss one. If I schedule one, then you'll be like, oh, Hunter's going live tonight. Let's talk some Brewers. But I think as spring training unfolds, let's start talking every Monday night. And I think 7 is going to be a good spot for it. 7:30, something like that. So let's plan on that. And again, any changes to that at Hunter B on air on all socials, and then Hunter Baumgardt Sports on the Facebook page, unless of course you're watching on the Facebook page, and then make sure you're following the page for all the updates. Thanks to everyone for listening. And one more thing, filling in again on the huddle in the morning, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. So I'm going to be getting to bed here pretty quick, but 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And it's the huddle, Fox Sports 920 a.m. in Milwaukee, Fox Sports 1070 in Madison. So if you're in either of those markets, or it's free on the iHeartRadio app, just search Fox Sports 920 and you'll be able to listen. 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. I'll be with Billy and Armin the rest of the week. Drew is on vacation, much deserved. So looking forward to being in with the guys again tomorrow, and we'll definitely have some more Brewers talk. Thanks again for listening and watching here, I guess, on Facebook and YouTube, and talk to you again soon.